Hey guys, this is Weiho Chu from Team PPG, bringing you a top 8 deck profile for the BCS 2018 Richmond Regional. Little bit of self-introduction. I've been playing this game since the first Kagero trial deck. I top 3rd or 4th in the 2012 Washington Regional with Spectre Duke, and then in I believe I also got in 3rd place at 2015 Richmond Regional with Kagero, I believe. And then on 2016 I got in 4th place with Gears, I believe. And last season, 2017, I have gotten 2nd place at the Richmond Regional with Gears as well. And also at the Autumn Festival, I also got Autumn Circuit 2017. I got in 2nd place with Zoic Time Beast with Gears. Today I'm bringing you a deck profile for Orgo Think Tank for Standard. I'm gonna go over some of my card choices for the regional, why I picked them, and yeah, pretty much it. And next on, then I'll go over my tournament report and what happened at Swiss and top 8. So starting off, the starter, Lows and Megas, pretty standard. Draw a card on right, and then 8 critical triggers, 4 heals, 4 sentinel draws, which is pretty normal. For grade 1 lineup, I played 4 Circle Magus, which is pretty standard. Card's really good when you ride it on grade 1. And then I played 4 Fel Magus to check cards, because checking top cards is always good, seeing what you have on top. And then I played 2 Luckbirds. Felt like 2 is more than enough. Certain games I never played more than 1 down onto the field at a time. And then have some really odd choices for the grade 1 lineup. I played 1 Orgo Guardian Gemini and 1 Goddess of Forbearance. Oh man, I don't know how to say that name. Yeah. Usually for Gemini, I felt like 1 or 2 copies is enough, because most of the time I'm always okay with I'm always playing really kind of defensive, and if I really need to take a damage, I will. If I don't want to, then I'll just stay at a certain damage, and then I could just play passively. And then for the Goddess of Ruins, I played it because I was worried about the Excel matchup. This card could help you draw 3 cards, and then if you have extra Sentinels that you don't need for the Excel matchup, you can always discard it. And discard extra grade 3s that you don't need for Excel matchups, because they usually tend to just play fast and beat you down before you could set anything up. And then for the grade 2 lineup, I played 4 Promise Starter, which is pretty standard. 15k beater, can't be bad, cannot be retired. Counters a lot of decks. Counters, not a lot of decks, but I mean like counters Kagero and Blast Dark. And then I played 2 copies of Yellow Witch, Mimi, Mei. It's a good card. You check the top card, and then and then I played 2 copies of Goddess of Insight. Felt like that card, I played it because I was worried about the Excel matchup. Usually if I play against any like Force or Protect matchup, I usually don't use it at all for the effect, the Counterblast effect, because I don't feel like it's worth paying 1 Counterblast for that effect to draw a card and then discard a card and checking the top card. I don't think it's worth it, but it's good against Excel because you're always gonna have like extra Counterblasts and all the damage they're gonna give you, and yeah. So, and then you could check the top card for a damage trigger next turn, which is not bad at all. But yeah. And then I played 3 copies of Battle Sister Tord. This card is really good if you open with it or you start with it. If you get it within by the first second turns that you ride grade 3, it's generally pretty good because you could put it out and you'll very likely have 10 cards in your hand, and you could build up towards it But in mid to late game, usually it's pretty just dead. You just, I usually just discard it for like the sentinels or the markers, for the protect markers. Yeah, and then for grade 3s, I chose to run 3 copies of CEO, 3 copies of Victorious Deer, and then 4 copies of Imperial Daughter. The reason being is that I played 3 Deer because I wanted it to be a little bit more safe. From testing, sometimes I've been damage checking them, or I don't see it quick enough and I can't close out a certain games. And then I felt like 3 COs already enough, because usually it's like your first ride grade 3, and then after that it's kind of iffy. It's not really as good as Imperial Daughter, because Imperial Daughter always has that crit pressure. And then yeah, Imperial Daughter, you know, the best second ride after your first grade 3 ride. It's Count Blast 1, check 2, you know, able to fix your hand, fix your top card, and, you know, it's the best. Yeah, that's what I ran for the regional. And see, the reason why I chose OTT for this regional is because it is I felt like OTT is the most consistent deck for standard currently, because of all the deck check, top deck check that you have in the deck, and you're able to fix a lot of problems with your hand also as well, with all the card drawing. You're able to, you know, get a protect marker every turn, so you always be able to control how much damage you want, which attack you want to block, and which attack you want to take. And yeah, the only thing you gotta watch out for is certain guard restriction cards like Waterfall, the Antlion, Violence Franker, and if you're playing around that, playing OTT most of the time is, you know, pretty consistent. Yeah, and then now I'm going over my tournament report. Hey guys, here's for the tournament report. The regional was around 7 rounds. It was around 127 players to 130 players, I believe. For round 1, I played against Kevin. He was playing Royal Paladin, and then I won the dice roll. It's pretty basic. I remember I didn't want to give him too much damage for Blaster Blade Akane, because you don't want to take 2 damage from Blaster Blade. So I remember I attacked him with only 1 Rear Guard to give him 1 counter blast, and then he rolled Blaster Blade Akane, of course, and then he put out 4 Rear Guards in total, and then attacked me with Blaster Blade. I blocked with the heal because I was on grade 2, and then he hit a draw trigger, which puts him to 1 card ahead. And then I no guarded the Akane, and the next turn I remember I rolled CEO, and then I hit him with the crit, but then he had 2 more draw triggers on damage. Well, they were PGs, so it wasn't that bad. So, and then I remember the game played out for a little bit longer, and then but he never rolled CEO because he saw my hand I was still holding on to like my protects from like rewriting every turn. And then so I just later I finished him off with Victorious Deer, and then he was 5k short of blocking the 3rd attack on the rear guard. So, and then he just no guarded, and then that was the game. And then round 2, I played against Patrick. He was playing the Shadow Paladin trial deck, so which is surprising. But I also won the die roll for that game too. You're gonna be hearing that a lot. So I remember he rolled a 6k to my 8k, and then he attacked me, but he hit a draw trigger, so it went through. And then I was like, that's fine. And then next turn, I rolled a grade 2, and then I remember Blaster Dark is a card, so and then I put out my Promise Starter to the field so that I don't have to worry about that. But turns out he didn't have it anyway. And then he rolled Dark Dictator next, and then he rolled up to Dark Dictator eventually, but I guess he drew a lot of triggers in his hand because he didn't put out any rear guards to pressure me the whole game. So it was just like really one-sided because he drew all his triggers and he didn't draw a rear guard until like the very last turn where it just didn't matter. And then, you know, at that point I just like played Victorious Deer and then closed it out. Round 3, I play against Jordan. He's a friend from Washington, and he was playing OTT also, and then I won the die roll. I remember I had to G assist for my grade 2, and then but that wasn't such a big deal because usually mirror matches are pretty grind. But I remember at some point, I think I had 3 counterblasts, but they were all face down, and then I had a promise starter on the side, and he wanted to deny me counterblast, so he attacked it, and then I made the mistake of letting it go. So, and then later next turn, I rolled Victorious Deer to push, but the problem was I didn't have any other rear guards to play along with it, except for 2 Victorious Deers. So, and then I put the 2 Victorious Deers on the side, and then after that, every turn he decided to go after my Victorious Deers, and then I couldn't do anything about it because when I first for the Victorious Deer skill, I saw 3 Imperial Daughter in that stack, and then they all went to the bottom of my deck. So I was just like, oh, this is gonna be rough. Luckily, I still had the 1 in my hand, but you know, it took a while to get there. So, and then I think every turn I was basically like blocking for my one. I let one of the Victorious Deer die, and then I had to block for the other Victorious Deer, like basically every turn, because he was just, you know, he didn't want me to pull the effect off again. And then, you know, the game was pretty, you know, back and forth, and then we went to time. I think on my last turn in time, the only trigger I left in the deck was a heal, but I remember the turn before I used Circle Megas twice on the rear guard to basically put my drive check on the bottom and then I draw a card. So, and then when I had 4 cards left in the deck, I knew the bottom 2 was like the 2 cards I put on the bottom, and then the other 2 cards was a heal. So I was able to on my last turn I hit the heal, and then I went back up to 3 damage to his 4 damage, so I was able to pull it out. So it was a really close match. And in round 4, I played against Aiden. He was also playing OTT mirror match. We were, and then I also won the die roll. You know, and then later Aiden turns out to win the whole regional. You know, congrats to him. So I remember from that match, he had to G assist for his grade 2, so I, you know, make note of his hand, and then I put up pretty great. I remember, because I remember on my first ride grade 3, I was able to put down a single tort on the side, and then I was able to get myself to 10 cards because I had a draw trigger on top from the drive check and another card, and then next turn I put down another tort, and I was able to keep that up with the pressure, and then he attacked one of my tort, and then next turn I put a Victorious Deer on the side, and then I was able to stack a crit on top, and then he had to block basically my tort with the crit, or basically he has to block my rear guards every turn with the crit on each side, and so eventually like his whole hand just kind of fell apart, and then he had to no guard, and then I just won. Round 5, I play against Charlie, which is, you know, he's a friend from Washington also, and he was playing Grand Blue, and I also won the die roll on that one. Let's see. I remember his hand was pretty bad because he had to ride Undead Skull Dragon twice, and then he didn't have any cards to mill or go through his deck. He I think he only had like Blue Blood, but I never let him hit with Blue Blood the whole game, and then he never had any Rune Shades or Normans. And then at some point I think he was at 2 damage, and then I was on CEO. I checked the top card. It was a critical trigger, and then so I attacked with CEO, and he decided to no guard, and I hit the critical, and the next card was also critical, and then so he went from 2 to 5, but he also damage checked like 2 Baskert in the process, and which is, you know, very unlucky. And then so at that point he just couldn't recover, and then it was just, you know, and then that was it. Round 6, I had to play against another friend of mine from Washington. His name's Simon. It was also an OTT mirror match, and I won the die roll on that one. Let's see. I remember I was on grade 2, and then he decided to attack my rear guards, one of my rear guard, instead of giving me damage, so that when I ride up to grade 3, I couldn't use the effect. But I didn't have a grade 3 anyway, so I had to G assist, and then on my top 5 cards I saw 3 victorious deers, so then I just grabbed one of them and wrote it. I was like, well, that's better than nothing. So and then the game just dragged on, and then, you know, the mirror match, you just gotta hold on to your PGs, make sure you don't lose to victorious deers or anything random. And then the game dragged out. I think we were pretty much like down to like, I lost 5 or 6 cards, and then I think he ran out of guard at some point, or he couldn't drive check anymore, so then he just took the damage, and then that was game. And then round 7, I played against Danny. He was playing D Police, and I also won the die roll on that one. Let's see. I remember him drawing not so great, because he didn't really put down any like good rear guards, like Die Dragons, or like the Dielanders, or the any of the one that makes it you can't intercept, or you have to block with 2 cards on Vanguard attack. Yeah, I remember he never drew that card against me, or he damage checked like 2 copies and wrote 1 or something. And like, yeah, he didn't draw anything. But like, the thing is, he hit a draw PG every turn in between turns, and then like I saw like he was just blocking my Vanguard over and over and over. So, and I couldn't do anything about it until he ran out of perfect cards, and then I wrote my 3rd Imperial Daughter, and then I killed him with it. So that was it. So I finished Swiss 7-0, and then I got 1st place after Swiss. So that means I'm playing the 8th place. So for top 8, I played against Grand Blue. His name was Kelvin. Remember, the game was pretty close. He definitely did not draw bad. On turn 2, he rolled a grade 2 Night Miss, I believe, and then put a blue blood on the side. And then I remember guarding for it, and you know, that really comes in play later, because I remember the game really dragged on because he had multiple Baskers to re-ride. I don't want to sound biased, but I felt like he hit like 1 trigger every turn. And then I think I drew a lot of my critical triggers, which is early, which is a problem. And then so later, when I remember I used my first victorious deer, I ended up hitting 0 critical triggers off the deer, and then I counted the crits in my drop zone and my damage and everywhere else in my hand, and then I realized I only had 1 critical left in my deck, so I was like, oh yeah, this is gonna be bad. So and then I tried to push. I think I pushed out all of his like his protect markers from his hand, and then next turn I victorious deer again, and then I think I hit 1 critical trigger that was left in my deck, and then but then he still had 2 regular Sentinel draw PGs in his hand, so he was able to block all my he was able to block the attacks. And then at some point, I think it came down to basically he after he attacked, he was at 2 cards left in his deck, and I was at 3 cards. And then so what it means is I couldn't attack with Vanguard, so I had my hand was after I drew, I remember it was like a perfect guard and another 5k guard, and then on my field I had a grade 2 rear guard and grade 3 victorious deer on the other side. So I attacked his Necro Breach that he had on the rear guard column, and then I attacked with the victorious there on the other regard that he had. Uh, so and then at that point, I just passed because I know I couldn't drive check. If I drove check, I would have lost because he still had like 6 cards in his hand, and I had like 0 triggers in my deck. So I knew like, if, like I couldn't just try to bait him into hopefully taking blocking, right, or like not knowing that I was gonna deck out. And then so I didn't attack. Next turn he used Basker's skill to bring out Undead Skull Dragon, and then on the other rigor columns he had a Cutlass, and then he called a grade 2 in front of it. So I was like, oh man, I could actually maybe survive this, because I could perfect guard the Undead Skull Dragon, and then I could intercept for 5k to block the other rigor column because there's a Cutlass behind it. So and then I perfect guard the Undead Skull Dragon, and then his other grade 2 turns out to be, it was a blue blood Commodore, so he had an extra plus 4k on it. So it was a 19k column swing and my 12k Vanguard, and then I was exactly 1 card short of blocking the damage. And he had 1 card left in his deck, so I would have won if I could block that one last attack. But that's the game. And so I lost in top 8. But he turned out he got second in the tournament, which is good for him. Congrats to him. That's pretty much like my tournament report for the whole tournament. Just a few more closing remarks. Shout out to Simon Tai for top 8ing the regional, but he lost in top 8 because of deck out. Shout out to Jared Campanella for getting 3rd place with Tachikaze. Congrats to him. He's going to Royals, so that's awesome. And then also shout outs to John Jaden. He's the one that recommended me to the PPG team. And shout outs to Justin Dungbar for letting me join the team. And shout outs to Pro Play Games. Shout out to Ultra Pro. And shout outs to George. And also shout out to everyone that was memeing me over. They were memeing me this whole weekend. And shout out to Canada, because the regionals in Canada. Shout out to all the Canadians that were there. Everybody was super nice. Overall, regional's been great. Yeah, hopefully I'll do better next time, next regional. Alright, thanks for watching the video profile, guys.